I'm so tired of people saying that it's just a movie, it's just a comic book, it's just a TV show. No, it's not. Stories are the building blocks of our culture, of ourselves, even of our own psychology. We are a product of the stories we tell ourselves about our own past and the experiences on a daily basis, but also the stories that we choose to spend time with. What types of values or feelings or whatever are they promoting? What types that we like to spend our time around? They're going to shape us. They're going to shape our personality and character, and they're going to shape our perception of the world and the acts and behaviors that we put out into the world. And people don't understand that. They go, it's just a movie. It's just this. I can like and promote whatever I want. Well, of course you can, but you should pay attention to the responsibility that you have.
Consume stories responsibly.
As a member of society, as a human being, responsibility to yourself.
Consider the consequences.
You need some balance. You need some certain criteria that is going to make sure you're promoting the right kind of works, or at least have thought through the type of work that this or that story is going to do in our culture, and then make your own decision whether or not that's something you want to support.
Consume stories responsibly. Consider the consequences. Consume stories responsibly.
Hello everyone, I'm Professor Geek. Welcome back to the channel. Hopefully you guys had a good week. Welcome back to another office hours. Let me know if the audio is okay because I neglected to plug the right mic in once I'd already logged in the StreamYard. So I had to go back and change it. Sometimes StreamYard doesn't like that. But hopefully I'm coming through loud and clear and all is well. I guess so. Don't see anybody saying anything. But welcome. Might let's see. Might have a an abbreviated stream tonight. I don't know. We'll see. I had a weird scheduling thing today. I dropped my daughter off with her mother early Saturday mornings, and my daughter takes the what's this anything? Darth Enigma says anything. Everything looks sounds fine. Thank you, Crystal Ashes. Somebody says okay. Darth Enigma said anything, and I was like, uh-oh, anything? What, like, you mean you can't hear anything? Yeah, so I dropped my daughter off, and she takes these sleep medications that she can't sleep without, and I forgot to pack the sleep medications, which meant that my, ex-wife was like an hour away, Alyssa's mother, so I had to, after Mass, had to get her medicine and drive like an hour to go drop off Alyssa's sleep medicine so she could sleep tonight, and then come back an hour, so I just got in. In fact, Sound Engraver was still napping when I got in, so I don't know if she will even be awake for the stream, because I told her, I was like, oh, not sure if I'm going to stream or not. Just depends on, how tired I am. So wanted to at least get a little stream in and see. We'll see what happens. But good to see everybody there. Let me welcome the chat here. Still the long road of healing with the cough that just hangs on forever, so I apologize for that. But we're getting there. Ghost Planet Max Inc., good to see you. Private Eye and Retrospectiva finally read Dracula. Good. Yeah, start checking out some movies. Good. Imaginative Hobbyist, welcome. Studio Super, great to see you there. Ace Moic, Crystal Ashes, Electric Barbarella, Andre Hernandez. Yeah, I thought you weren't going to live stream. Yeah, usually I set it up. Usually I take more time in putting a nice thumbnail together and stuff, but just busy today. Eldritch Fan, good to see you. Auditor Dread. Leia Plus Size, great to see you there. Eldritch Fan said you're watching more spooky movies over the weekend. Yeah, and I we'll talk about that tonight. I might continue it a little bit. I don't know. We'll see. But Leah Plus Size says, sir, I have much respect for your movie recommendations, but that Fright Night 2 is one I like to forget. Saw it before, went back to look at it, and not for me. But that's fine. I mean, I don't know what your reasons for not liking it, but a lot of people who just really respect Tom Holland's vision for the first Fright Night don't like it, which I get. I mean, Tom Holland there was a novelization written of Fright Night. I talked about this in my video that I did on it when the movie came out. But Tom Holland recently rewrote another novelization, putting in some of the stuff that he wants to kind of continue the story with. Some of it's good. some of it's pretty crappy. I'll tell you one thing that I think is ridiculous. Evil Ed is now gay. Evil Ed is gay. So when Jerry Dandridge is coming to Evil Ed, that great moment in the movie where here's this young misunderstood kid that everybody thinks is weird or a freak, and this man, who's got it all together, this Jerry Dandridge, it's supposed to be like a fatherly thing, like somehow suddenly, because Evil Ed doesn't really have a father, at least you don't see a father figure in the film, and this fatherly, character says, it's okay, I know you've been mistreated, I'm going to take, and it's like this, it's a horrible father figure because it's a vampire. And then in the book, he just like totally rewarped that into like, so he's kind of attracted to him and this and that. I'm like, that's just the most trite, unoriginal crap. I mean, so everybody who's a little weird in high school, everybody who's not popular is probably gay. It's so dumb. It's so dumb. And I'd tell Tom Holland that to his face. That's the most idiotic writing move. And I thought you were above that. Other than that, it was good stuff. I am still waiting for my copies of the comics. They're still trying to get them together and publish them that continue the story. And of course, the Marvel comics continue the story for a while with Charlie and Peter Vincent fighting all types of monsters together, which was a cool idea. But I liked Fright Night too because of all the little references to Dracula. It's Tommy Lee Wallace, director of It and Halloween 3. It's still Roddy McDowall. It's Ragsdale. You had the Renfield character, the sister of Dandridge comes back and she's got her little entourage. And one of them they're all vampires except for the Renfield character who's a ghoul, just like, Dandridge had his ghoul, but he's a ghoul who eats bugs, constantly eating bugs, like Renfield. One of the vampires is more werewolf-like, again, a Dracula reference, all these little things in the dialogue. So I just appreciated that as a Dracula fan, but, won't be for everybody. I get that. Sorry it wasn't for you. I understand. Padre Coserno, yes, happy All Souls Day to you as well. End of our little tridium there, and I was looking at the missal today in Mass, and I thought, man, only 3 Sundays left before the Feast of Christ the King, and then boom, Advent. It's like it's upon us, like out of nowhere. Let's see. Studio Super, thanks for the super chat. Said, now that Halloween is over, let's ask the question we're all dying to ask. How was the trick-or-treat haul? Oh, Alyssa got a great trick-or-treat haul. Her mother had taken her to some trunk-or-treat things a couple weeks beforehand, so she had a good supply of candy at her mother's house, too. This is Alyssa's pretty hefty bag here. All kinds of, and the good stuff too. The Twixes, the Snickers, not like the little, here's some Smarties, I mean, good stuff. Good premium chocolate stuff. So got to keep it away from her. She'll just sit there and wolf it all down. And, but yeah, thank you. Hope you guys had a good Halloween, whatever you did. And those who are Catholic, hope you made it to All Saints Day Mass. I love hearing the Litany of the Saints. I know there's this stigma in the Catholic Church, like serious Catholics prefer the serious traditional music, which I do to a certain extent, and I get it. But I also really like I like Matt Maher's, not Matt Maher. Is it Matt? No, not Matt Maher. Is Matt Maher the Catholic guy who does the Litany of the Saints? I'm blanking on the name right now. I'm getting it mixed up, I think, with maybe somebody else. I think it's Matt Maher. Anyway, I like some of that stuff, but excuse me. Let's see. Eldridge fan said, Fright Night was scary because the vampire and his minion had that uncanny valley feel. Like they were not human, but going through the motions of humanity. Their humanity was, and then you're finishing out, performative. Yeah. Yeah, especially, I don't know why I'm blanking on the character's name, but Jerry Dandridge's minion, forget what his name is right now. But he was a cool character because you really didn't know. At first you thought, okay, well, he's a human servant. But then when he dies and comes back and you realize, okay, well, he's a ghoul, somebody that's been given a little bit of the vampire blood, but not, enough to make him a vampire. So he does have that sort of unnaturally lengthened life and whatnot. It was interesting. Let's see. Scrolling on down. Darth Enigma, good to see you there. Eldridge fan for 499. Thank you. Said, as a weird kid, I'm so grateful this wasn't going in when I was in school, and I hate trunk or treats. It kills the fun of trick or treat, less special. Yeah, I don't mind. It is Matt Marr, Padre Casino. Thank you. I thought I had it right, but then I was second guessing myself. I don't mind the idea of trunk or treat for people who, like me, who don't live in a neighborhood where you can walk on the road and trick or treat. Like if I walked on my road, it's a highway, So I don't mind the idea of trunk or treats for people who live in a rural area who can go and still go to each, car and do the little trick or treat thing. I don't like trunk or treat when it's combating the evils of Halloween. Everybody dress up as your favorite biblical character and come to our harvest party, and we'll have some candies in the trunk or treat. I don't like that kind of idea. But hey, another chance to get candy, and the trunk or treats we went to were great. They had their cars decked out and decorated and stuff. And, but I took Alyssa, we took her to a couple of trunk or treats that we knew of. We got some really good pizza, and then we went to a neighborhood and just trick or treated until she was tired. So, it was fun. It was good. It is daylight savings time, Francisco. Yes, us nocturnal people like myself get an extra hour tonight, which I'm very excited about. Studio Super, thank you for the super chat. Said, went to work on Halloween wearing a Dr. Doom mask with a hood. Awesome. Kids loved it. Though I scared a few of my coworkers. That's cool. I've never seen a real life Dr. Doom mask. That's pretty sweet. That's pretty cool. Padre agrees with me. I agree in the trick-or-treat period. I fear it's dissipating a lot of our American traditions that bring neighbors together in the actual neighborhood and allow kids to be kids. Yeah. There's a sweet little neighborhood that is up the road, 10 minutes or so from me, that I used to go trick-or-treating at as a child, because I lived in pretty much the same kind of rural setting, and didn't have couldn't go out on my road and trick or treat. But this little neighborhood is so great. All the parents get into it. The houses get into it. In fact, I was taking Alyssa to this one house, and it was this house where you walk up the driveway and there's a screen porch, and you have to go around the screen porch to over in the back side to get to the entrance. Just the way the house is designed. It's kind of weird. So as we're walking up the driveway, and you see the screen porch there's a statue of Michael Myers just staring out the window. And I was like, and it's totally still. And I was looking at the eyes of the mask. I was like, I think that probably is somebody in that. So we come around the corner, and you kind of lose sight of everything until you get to the entrance. And then suddenly the guy in the Michael Myers mask, who you previously saw in the window there, is just standing there in the entrance with his mask and his candy. And he's just standing there holding the candy. He won't say anything to you. He won't move. You have to walk up and take the candy out of the bucket, and he's just staring at you with those cold black eyes the whole time. That was cool. I think his mask was from one of the Blumhouse movies, so I didn't care for that, but the idea was pretty cool. That was neat. AL, good to see you here, and thank you. I don't know if you saw my response to your comment, AL, but I think it's you. You're always showing up here as AL, but somebody sent Sound Engraver and I a Get Well digital card with a name that matches AL initials, so I didn't know if that was you or not, but if that was you, that was very kind and thoughtful of you. Thank you very much. Gentle Savage, ever seen I never did get around to seeing Paranorman. I did see Coraline because I like Neil Gaiman's work, at least before he became a, woke mouthpiece. And I like that. I didn't see Paranorman, though. I've heard good things about it. But I'll give it a chance. Fright Night 2 just felt short to you in the writing, to each his own. I guess, I'm not going to sit here. Maybe I'd have to watch it a couple more times to really try and judge the writing. Initially, I'm just so Dracula fanboy squeeing at some of the deep dive references. I'm like, hey, that's somebody who really read and understands the book of Dracula, that wrote that. But I haven't really stepped back objectively just to think about the story itself. I thought it was a neat recommendation since we've been talking about Dracula, the novel, so much. Final Fantasy fan, good to see you. Let's see. Michael Scombati, great to see you. Michael Scombati says, "What do some people like villains more?" I don't know. It's disturbing though. I with my classes, some of the classes I teach are just sort of college writing, like writing and composition kind of things. They're called something different, but as sort of fodder or subject matter, I'll look at hero archetypes and whatnot, and I'll let the students argue their own case for is the hero's journey, is it outdated, or what about the aspirational heroes? Are they too goody-goody? Are they relatable anymore? And I show them a lot of evidence. Of course, I'm trying to argue my side, but I give them sources on the other side too, and let them really, develop their own thoughts and make an argument for it. And it's shocking how many of them, at least at the beginning of the semesters, are just knee-jerk. They're passé. People like real characters, Like, how real, again, as I've always said, what level of realism do you think you're owed in a story about a guy who flies? What level of realism do you think you're owed in a story? It's just, it's bizarre. And usually by the end of the semester, I can bring them around. But that same kind of mentality is far more interested in the villains. Oh, the Joker movie is so good. Oh, let's do movies about all the Disney villains. And, Loki's such a great character. Let's have series of his all by himself, and on and on. No, Gentle Savage, I haven't read a Lovecraft book. I've read some of his short stories. Lovecraft's not really for me. I don't dislike him, but the prevailing sense in all of the Lovecraft stories I read is that the whole world's going to be destroyed. You're going to die. Everybody's going to die. It's going to be horrific. Yay, Cthulhu. I mean, I guess there's something sort of cathonically cathartic about that, maybe, or something, but it's just not. I've read some of his short stories and just never really been able to get into them. I'm not opposed to them ideologically or anything. It's just not for me. I know a lot of people love him, though. I'm not saying anything bad about him. I just not a Lovecraft fan. I did hear that there was I never caught it back in the day. I think it was an HBO original film. There was like a film noir with a Lovecraft spin on it. I think the film noir detective was even called H.P. Lovecraft. It was like set in the 40s, though, so not necessarily Lovecraft's own time. I forget the name of it, but it was interesting. Get to some points here in a second. Michael Smith said, do I believe in nature or nurture when it comes to real world villains? I think it's a mistake to say nature versus nurture, as in you can only have one or the other. I think that's a mistake. Of course, one's surroundings, the opportunities one has, of course, those things shape a person, of course. But I do think there's an essential nature to people too. Not so much in like a predestined kind of nature. It's not like you're born either good or bad, but people have agency, and yeah, certain things that happen to you or that you're around can influence the decisions you might make. But at the same time, people are free to make the decisions they make. And there have been cases of horrible criminals who had wonderful childhoods and so forth, so it's an interesting question though, for like writers, Studio Super says, and nowadays they don't even do real good. It's either edginess or heavily sanitized, where everyone has the morality of Jesus until they encounter straight white guy. That you kind of bring up a point there. One of the things I'll talk about is, some of the things I'm going to be talking about on the channel soon. I did finally start reading Batman Resurrection, and I'm so loving it. Now I'm only like 3 chapters in, but I am dearly loving every word of it. I'm just, maybe it'll all go to pots by the end. I don't know. But so far it's pure John Jackson Miller goodness, and it's pure Batman 89 goodness too. I'll kind of spoil the first chapter for you, which is just the first little chapter. But this guy who's trying to buy these products for this theater company, because remember in Batman 89, the Joker would poison all the cosmetics with the Smile, so if you used some of those products together, you would get the Joker toxins, kill you basically. So this guy's trying to find like bootleg imported, cosmetics on the street for this theater company that he's with, and this, star or whatever. But he ends up getting to do the role of Caliban. It's the Tempest that they're doing it in the night. and he's telling the guy, and you've been with this character, for like a chapter, and at the very end of it, he's telling the stage manager to announce him, make sure you announce him because I'm going on as the understudy to such and such. And he said, well, what was your name again? And he says, well, use my stage name. My stage name's cooler, Basil Carlo. And I was like, oh, it's Clayface, And of course, the cosmetics that he used makes him into Clayface. That was cool. And then the next chapter, you see Lawrence. Remember one of Joker's gang, the big bald guy with the mustache at the beginning of what's at the beginning of the song Party Man, but it's also in the museum scene when Joker walks in, is like, gentlemen, let's broaden our minds. Lawrence? And Lawrence is always holding the boombox, And it's like, oh man, that's, Miller's really kind of, that's a good way to I don't want to say pander, but to appease or to please the fans of things with little things like that. But they're not just member berries because they're not just hanging on the vine uselessly. They're actually weaved into the plot, But again, I haven't seen the whole thing, so I haven't read the whole thing yet. So I'll keep talking about it as I move on. But about your comment, it's so much better. What I'm loving about Batman Resurrection so far is that it's so much better than Sam Hamm's Batman 89 comics. They are just garbage. They're absolute trash. The art's amazing, and I did a review on it, but first of all, the problem is you start, and it's been like years, like almost 10 years, I think, if I remember correctly, after even Batman Returns has taken place. Enough to where Bruce Wayne has like a gray streak in his hair now. And Bruce Wayne is not a hero. He's not a wise, heroic person. He's the stupid, white, cisgendered male who needs to sit there and listen. And you listen, Bruce Wayne, to the minority Robin come tell you how tough it is, and to Catwoman come tell you how tough it is as a woman, and blah. That's all it is. It's like Sam Hamm's white guilt being played out in the story. It's like, do you even know the appeal of the character of Batman? I mean, it's straight up hot garbage from top to bottom. So I was so excited when Miller was doing one that maybe we could get something without social politics in it. But so we'll see. I'll keep reading it. There's my dear sound engraver. Thank you. Glad everything's coming through. Yeah, you were asleep and I didn't want to wake you up. You look like you were resting so well. Eldridge fan says it goes down afterward, chapter 3. I think I'm just in chapter 3. We'll see. I'm not gonna let you color me against it, Eldridge fan, but I'll be honest in my Lawrence. Yeah. Well, he says that to Bob in the movies, but I think you're just applying it to Lawrence. Lawrence, you are my number one guy. That's what Grisham says to Napier in the movie. All right. Patrick's talking about Cuckoo and Longlegs. I haven't heard of those. I think I might have heard Fan Man talking about them. Excuse me. So, I want to share with you guys something that happened to me the other day, because we were thinking about media going forth. We're talking about Batman, for example, and this is a franchise, a dearly beloved franchise from '89, for crying out loud, that Hollywood just refused to bring back and do anything with. Outcries. Fans would have just thrown their entire pair of pants at them with the wallets in tow if you just bring back freaking Michael Keaton as Batman. And they don't do it. They just refuse to even listen to you until, when do they finally bring it back to you? In the Ezra Miller Flash movie, which is such an insult and slap in the face. That's why I was like, anybody going to see this just for Michael Keaton? Don't fool yourself. You're not going to see it for Michael Keaton, because it's not even remotely doing justice to his character or anything. Hollywood is so out of touch. Again, the movie executives, they know nothing. They absolutely know nothing about story. So where does that leave us now with a lot of our franchises? With a lot of our franchises, it's to the point where they've waited too long and people have died, who are actors or whatever are part of it. Or they tried to bring it back, but brought it back in the wrong way, and they've just sort of mismashed, garbled, gooked it, like Star Wars or something. Like, just let it die. Just let it die. Let it lie. In a lot of cases, that's what I feel like, But on the other hand, you've got stories beloved franchises that they keep talking about bringing back. I'm going to talk about Stargate here in a second because, Sound Engraver and I have been going through, and it's her first time watching Stargate or Stargate Atlantis, SG-1 or Atlantis. And they've been trying and talking about maybe bringing back that so many times and so many iterations. Now we're doing this. Now we're not doing that, but now we're doing this. Now so-and-so's not doing, but so-and-so's going to come in and do this. Like, okay. And every time I hear something, I'm like, please don't. Please don't. Just let it lie, because you won't do it right. You'll, in today's climate, you'll mess it up. But we're also in election season. And there's this, as fans of this stuff, we all hate when they try to preach woke politics in story. Not because we want our politics preached in the story. We just want to hear a good story without politics preached to us in any way. We want a good story that does the job of story. And the woke ideologues trying to say, oh, it's always, look at the X-Men. Look, it's always been. No, stories have always dealt with issues. They have recontextualized the vicissitudes of our culture, our daily, life. But the point is, they don't bring that. Like, X-Men's a perfect example. Okay, the 60s dealing with racism. Let's do a story about whatever you want, not really racism, but whatever you want to call it, against mutants, not necessarily against, blacks and whites in the street or whatever, because that's just a realistic story. That's not a comic book. Recontextualize the issue so that we can examine it in a different way. And that's what the X-Men did. What does Sam Hamm do in Batman 89? He brings Black Lives Matter to Gotham City. Gotham City is a fictional universe, a fictional world. We don't want, if we want a story about Black Lives Matter or about the plight of, urban black people and this and that, then there are stories out there. Don't bring that into Batman. It's not like you have to pretend that racism magically doesn't exist in the world of Batman. But Batman's for telling Batman-like stories, and people don't get that. But the problem with that comes from real-life politics, or at least from people's treatment and reactions when it comes to real-life politics. Get a couple of super chats here. Sounding great. Yeah, no Stargate remake. I know. Eldridge fan said, fans are doing great stories with AI actors. Oh, I know. Eldridge fan is always here to beat the Prism drum. Some channel that does this kind of stuff. He recommends it highly. I've never seen it, but fan work, fan fiction or whatever is probably the way to go. So I want to share this story. It's a real life thing that happened to me the other day. I have on Facebook, I changed, because I had for Halloween, I had Ernest Scared Stupid, as my cover photo. And I changed it because Halloween's over. So I figure, okay, for the few days between now and the election, I put the picture, the famous picture now of when Trump, the assassination attempt, and he was like, fight, and there's that great picture of him. And you may not like Trump. Maybe you don't care for what, that's fine, whatever. You'll still get the point of the story. I support Trump, so I put it as my Facebook cover photo. This guy that I'd forgotten I was even Facebook friends with, I met him when I was with Spalding University's MFA in writing program back in the day. And he's got to be in his late 60s, if not early 70s by now. He's a college professor as well. And he comes on, he's like, do you support Trump? In a comment, which is weird. It's like I just put that up. It's like yes. That my point was a yes. Then he comes back and he says this. He says, so sorry to hear that you support him. I don't understand. I hope your daughter doesn't die like the women in Texas. Let that sit in for a second. I don't understand. I hope you don't. I hope your daughter doesn't die like the women in Texas. Just think of the stupidity and the petulance of somebody who would make a comment like that. It's not a one-off. It's not just, oh, this guy was crazy. I wrote in a post, I said, because I screenshotted the thing and just shared it on my own Facebook to my own friends there. I said, imagine being so self-righteous that you would roll up into someone's comment section to combat their wrongthink with a casual scenario in which their daughter dies because they didn't vote correctly. I met this guy at the Spalding MFA program that prides itself on being compassionate and caring for one another, so long as you're a Democrat, basically. I've hardly spoken to him since then, yet he feels justified in reconnecting with this lovely message. And I say this and I mean it wholeheartedly. Hatred and condescension have become the face of the Democrat Party. Now, stay with me if you happen to be a Democrat or you happen to be somebody who doesn't like Trump. That's fine. I know it's not indicative of each individual Democrat, as I wrote, or each individual person who just opposes Trump politically. And I greatly appreciate friends of mine who are too respectful or tactful to let politics come between us. But the mass, arrogant othering of Trump supporters is disgustingly asinine. And this is the MO of the Democratic Liberal Party in media, in every popular media. And it's Hollywood's fault. It's the Hollywood ideologues' fault. It's the media pundits' fault. It's this, oh, you voted for, I didn't realize you were a lizard and a piece of non-human trash. I didn't know you were a Trump supporter. Oh my gosh. That's the way it is. And of course, if you want this candidate in, you're not going to like that candidate. Of course. But Trump derangement syndrome is real. And it's not a new thing. I mean, the Democratic Party, in terms of their public face forward now, has been doing this since the Bush years. Remember? Oh, George W. Bush. I don't like Barack Obama. I really don't like the man. I think he's a smug, arrogant, silver-tongued serpent. But I don't huff and puff every time I see him on the screen. I don't hate the fact that he's on this earth taking up air. I don't roll my eyes every time somebody mentions him in a conversation. But a lot of people, and these are the same people who end up in Hollywood or end up in the media and end up in the entertainment industry who write these stories with this same kind of conditioned, brainwashed notion, ideology, that they're the right guys. They're the good guys. And you're all a bunch of wrong-thinking imbeciles who need to be reconditioned, reprogrammed. And we're going to break into your franchises, into your favorite stories, into your mythologies, and use them to do it. And that's where we get garbage stories from. So it's with that going on right now, how can we even hope for them bringing back a beloved franchise with them having done it so many times poorly? Even when they maybe could pull it off a little bit. I know that Ghostbusters Afterlife is controversial. Some people think it's crap or whatever. Again, I stand by what I've said. I think it was the best they could have done now, given all the time. And I still don't like some of the things they did. I think it was stupid having the fallout between Egon and the rest of them or whatever. But, something like that's the best they can do at this point, with it being so much time passed. They've already kind of, with a lot of these franchises, tried to bring them back sort of wishy-washy one way or another. I mean, who even cares anymore? We'll talk about Stargate specifically here in a second, but let me get a couple super chats before I miss them. Studio Super, in episode 1 of Star Talks. Oh, this is your show, Star Talks. I show examples of analogies done right and wrong. These folks are like anti-method actors. Instead of working around characters, they make them work around themselves. That's a good way of putting it. Fearmongers, they said in another super chat. I think you said, they said women would die when Roe v. Wade got overturned. Never happened. Said Trump would enact Hitler policies. Never happened. Yeah. I mean, and every party's going to use some hyperbole towards the other party. Some fear tactics even, sure. But I think any rational thinking person, whatever their political party affiliation, has got to see. I mean, you can not like Trump and not want him as your president, but you still gotta, if you're rationally thinking, you still gotta understand that this whole orange man bad, is bad for people. It's bad for their psychologies. It's imagine where it's going to go from here. I mean, their reaction to Trump is so far ramped up from the reaction to George W. Bush, and that was pretty insane as it was. And that was tied in, on the pendulum swing to their absolute worship of Barack Obama, a human being. So it's like, man, these people need help. And I don't say that funny. I mean, the guy who wrote that comment to me, trying to say my daughter's gonna die, which is BS. That whole thing about the women in Texas, no, that's just fear mongering. And but to even bring my daughter into it, which itself is because the story is these women died because they were they weren't allowed to get an abortion, so they died, in Texas. He doesn't know much about me. He just saw that I had a daughter on my Facebook profile. My daughter is severely autistic. She's never going to have a romantic relationship. She's never going to leave home. She's always going to be my little girl, no matter how chronologically old she gets. Could you imagine if a Republican had made that kind of heartless, thoughtless, ignorant comment to a Democrat? Oh my gosh, pearls clutched all over for years to come. This is just evidence of how evilly non-human those horrible Trump supporters are, But he can make that comment. And he also unfriended me directly afterwards. So it was just sort of like, nee, and then go away real quick, It wasn't even like a dialogue, which would have been a horrible approach to a dialogue anyway. But that's like, and again, this guy's like in his 60s. He's a professor. This isn't some 12-year-old or, little, even 18-year-old little troll boy or whatever. This is just the MO. And I really think, and if you are a Democrat, you've got to be worried about your party because, I mean, that is the public face of the Democratic Party. Arrogance and hatred of anybody who is opposed to them. It's a real problem. It's a real problem. Not saying the Republicans are perfect, not saying we don't have our own problems. Sure, absolutely. But this is a big deal. This is a big deal for culture. It's going to harm things. Let's see. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything else before I move on to the Stargate thing. So Stargate SG-1, I know I've been reliving it, and loving it so much. And I remember, I was watching it live back in the day. And I remember when SG-1 got to the point where they were just doing movies. Okay, that was stupid. They should have kept on doing a season 11. It was popular, but again, some executive, it's sci-fi, like, I think we'll cancel that and move on. MGM, there's a lot of things going on. MGM wanted to go bankrupt. They wanted to sell their company. So somebody got the bright idea that it was a better idea to create a new Stargate series than continue with Atlantis, which was widely popular. The last season of Atlantis is in no way a closure of the whole series. Thankfully, it didn't end on like a cliffhanger. But still, it's like, okay, there's more story to be told here. What happens next, Just end that. They said they were maybe going to make a movie, but then some idiot, some genius at MGM pulled that plug, and they were going to do a new series. And I'd like to just blame the executives for being the clueless, ignoramuses that they always are. But it's not just them. They greenlit this new series, and Brad Wright and Robert C. Cooper decided to remake the Stargate universe in the image of Battlestar Galactica, the remake. Dark, gritty, nihilistic, no really person to root for because they're all horrible to each other. That is garbage. That's garbage television. And I know some people like that kind of television. I don't know what to tell you. I think there's everything wrong about liking that kind of thing, but you do you. The point is, that's not Stargate. And that's not even just like, oh, that's not what I wanted to happen with Stargate. That's like a night and day switch. Because if you've watched SG-1 in Atlantis, these are characters you enjoy hanging around. These are characters trying to do the right thing. There are stakes. People die. I mean, it's a big deal. It's serious. It's not just a little, sitcom comedy kind of thing. But at the end of the day, these are really good people trying to do good in the world. And you can get behind them, and you want to spend time with them. And when somebody does die off, it affects you horribly. I just don't give a crap about anybody, and I don't think anybody really does. Anybody who likes Battlestar Galactica, the remake, for example, you don't really care about any of those characters. You might be sad if they go away because you still wanted them to come along the screen every week and do melodrama and be horrible to other people and to themselves and so forth. And what's the nihilistic thing's going to happen next? Oh, if you thought you could root for that guy, but he's really a big douchebag too. And it's just like, what is the appeal of this crap? And So that's where we are with the Stargate, and they've been talking about, oh, don't you want Wright and Cooper to come back? Not really. The last thing they gave us was Stargate Universe, which they've never apologized for. Never. They've just tried to defend, well, it was time to do something different. No, it wasn't. Something was working. Something gave people joy. Something people loved it. People were still coming to it. It hadn't gotten stale. It wasn't like people were, the ratings were sliding off and people weren't really into it anymore. We had to freshen it up. No, it wasn't that at all. But the idiots decided to crap on it and turn it into something else that was not popular, that got canceled quite quickly. So that, people talking about, Stargate's going to be coming back. Who cares? Then, the guys who wrote the original movie, they were going to do it for a time, and they were going to do, okay, now, no, they're not going to do a sequel. Now they're going to remake the first one, and now they're going to, oh, no, now they're not going to do that anymore. Okay, now they're not going to do it at all. Somebody else is going to do it. It's like, way to inspire trust, guys. Way to inspire some trust. To the point where they did like a little web series prequel to the whole Stargate story with like Catherine, the woman who finds the Stargate in the first movie. I didn't even care to watch it. Why would I? No. Leave it alone. You're going to crap all over it no matter what, because for whatever reason today, in today's culture, the writers don't know how to write anymore. And whether that's their fault or whether that's pressures from the executives or whatever, who knows? But let's just say if you could pull it off some way, okay? Because Joe Flanagan, God bless Joe Flanagan. He's the guy who played Major Shepard, Colonel Shepard in Stargate Atlantis. He seems like a great guy, really cares about the fans and cares about the story of Stargate. And he actually was trying to make a season 6 of Atlantis. He got funding. He got all kinds of people together. He negotiated with MGM. And before he could actually get into action and making it, they sold the rights to somebody else, and there was more negotiation. Then they didn't want to work with him or whatever. But God bless people like him who get the story, and wanted to continue it in a good way. If you could have somebody like that come along and do it independently or whatever, get funding for it or whatever. So much time has gone by, though. I don't want a Stargate SG-1 or Atlantis story, particularly Atlantis. Atlantis ended with, we needed to know exactly what happens the next day. I don't want a 10 years later or 20 years later story with Atlantis. No. And there are some books that have tried to tell the story. Some of them are okay. Some of them are not so great, whatever. The only way to do it is this idea. Now, I haven't seen this animated thing yet, but when J. Michael Straczynski was talking about wanting to bring back and reboot Babylon 5, he even said, we want to reboot it dealing with today's issues and today's dramas, the Trump years. He was really wanting to just, a Trump deranged syndrome Babylon 5 is what J. Michael Straczynski, who's given us so many great, wonderful classic stories. He's another one of these Trump derangement syndrome people who just spits out propaganda now. You can't write a story anymore. It's just propaganda. So many people are like that now. Great writers of the old who gave us wonderful things. They're politically motivated in everything they do now. They cannot separate it. It's just melded in their minds, their brains. So thankfully, the funding fell through and they weren't going to redo Babylon 5 because Babylon 5 was beautiful. It was a wonderful show. 5 seasons. You could tell he'd mapped out the story he wanted to tell beforehand. They had to make some tweaks along the way when this actor left or this, they didn't know if they were going to get picked up for a 5th season or not. But it pulled it all together. And then the movies, the tie-in movies were great. The little mini-series kind of movies or little mini-movies that they did at one point was great, kind of tying in and filling in the gaps. And what they eventually, this was 2 or 3 years ago, I think, they released an animated film that also told some stories within the gaps and whatnot. I haven't seen it yet. I kind of forgot about it, that it existed. Al said he liked it, but I love you, Al, but you also like the Agatha Disney Plus series. So our tastes and discernments aren't exactly aligned. But I do want to see it because it brings back all of the original cast who are still alive. Tragically, we've lost Andreas Katsoulis, Mira Furlan, Stephen Furst, Conway as well. But it brought back people who were alive to do the casting. And I think that's the way to do it, because with an animated film, you don't have to say that, now we're 30 years later or whatever, you can just do the story and continue it. We're lucky that not a lot, we've tragically lost some great people from the Stargate cast. Of course, Don S. Davis died, when they were even still making the movies. He'd had heart trouble and that was horrible. Cliff Simon passed away somewhat recently. The guy who did Ball, Obi Nadofo, the guy who played Ragnarok, one of the Jaffa. Some people have passed away like that, which is horrible. But for the most part, all of your leads are still there. They're still alive today. And I think would still be willing to reprise these roles, even in voice acting. If you could get, somebody like a Joe Flanagan or somebody that was not in the studio system, had nothing to do, don't let Wright and Cooper just sit enthroned upon it all, because that's last time they did that, they gave us Universe, if they really came out contrite about it and really apologized for, crapping something out in the Stargate name, maybe you could bring them back and, see what they did. But I think that would be the way to do it. I think an animated film is the only way to do it for some of these franchises. Just like in Batman 89, the only way to do it is in a book form, or if they ever did want to do an animated, like they did the Batman 66 films, those are great, Thank God that Adam West was able to do both of those movies before he passed away. And Burt Ward, I think they had I'm blanking on her name. Catwoman. The first Catwoman. I'm blanking on her name. I know her name, but I'm just blanking on it. But yeah, she was back. Of course, William Shatner did the voice for Two-Face in the second one because there was talk back in the day of him playing the role of Two-Face on the show, but they never got around to doing it. But something like that, I think, would really be the only way to carry on and bring back some of these franchises anyway, outside of novels, But problem with novels, and we see this with the Stargate novels, some of them are great. Some of them are like, what? Because novels really aren't, they're not always done by true fans. They're done by freelance authors who want to look for whatever's popular, and then they want to write something in that so they can get a job, not necessarily because they want to preach or anything. They just want to, get a job. And they maybe do some little research beforehand, but they're not people necessarily. It doesn't have to be somebody who's watched the show from the beginning and has been a big fan and knows all the ins and outs and really cares about the story. It doesn't necessarily have to be somebody like that. So it's hit or miss. Some of the Stargate novels are wonderful. Some of them are like, what? Get out of here, But I think an animated series would have a little bit more oversight if it was done in the right way. That's just my idea there. Some super chats that I missed here. Studio Super, dude, sounds like the mafia. You love your family. It'd be a real shame if something happened to them. Yeah. Now, I don't think he meant it as a threat, but it could easily sound like a threat, right? Be a shame if your daughter died, But that's the intention. The intention was, if you don't start voting the right way or start thinking the right thoughts, your daughter's going to die. I mean, that's basically the point of it. And just to casually throw that out there and then, unfriend, don't want to hear what you have to say back to me now. I mean, that's just, that person needs help. And I don't say that in a mean-spirited way. That person needs psychological help. It's not good for them to live their life with that much hatred, with that much othering of their other human beings. Like, yeah, you take an extreme Marxist leftist, I'm going to disagree so much with that person, but I still recognize their humanity and don't wish ill on them, Yeah. There's another super chat down here I think I missed. Under Hernandez, thank you. Said, thoughts on DC Identity Crisis. Do you think that was DC's attempt to make their own Watchmen story? Yeah, that was definitely DC's attempt to go dark. Now, like the Watchmen, I think that Identity Crisis is very well written. I forgot the guy's name who wrote that. He did a lot of like conspiracy theorist novels too. I think it's a well written story, but it's not the characters. You took this universe, you took a beloved culture and history that we'd had with the Justice League, and you just tried to infect it with this evil conspiracy thing and cabal within it and stuff. It was a horrible story, definitely. Eldritch fan said, I missed a super chat of yours. All right, let me go back. Let me see the last super chat from you. I got your one about Prism. I read that one. Did I miss another one? Lawrence, nice guy. Your number one guy. I always like villains. Okay, here we go. I always like the villains and realism internal. Equals internal. Villains and realism equals internal. I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. Specify in the comment section. I'll look for your comment there and read it. I'll be waiting for you here. I don't quite know what you mean by that. But yeah, it'd be interesting. Excuse me. Elfrunner said they didn't they merge Watchmen continuity with mainstream. They did a really great Superman Doomsday. No, it's not Superman Doomsday. Forgetting the name of it. But it was a Superman run that was intended to kind of be a big culminating, or at least a big project of DC Rebirth. But of course, Dan DiDio came back in and pulled the plug on Rebirth and brought in Bendis to ruin all the Superman runs and everything, and it was just garbage. So it was, but the Superman story was really good. The Superman story that merged the Watchmen, it was like they were the problem, the Watchmen universe and their negativity and their nihilism and whatnot against Superman's hopefulness, and the two universes merged. It was a great story. It was done by Jeff Johns, I believe, and Gary Frank, I think, was the artist. Really well done. Elder fan clarifying, you meant realism in a fantasy story means internal consistency. Yeah, like psychological realism has to be there. And the thing is, when it comes to aspirational heroes, the people who are like, you can't write them, they're too they're just too dimensional. You can't. No, you're just a person who doesn't understand that good people can exist. Yeah, of course you're not going to have an aspirational person in real life at that level because they serve as a symbol. But what's so hard about this? I mean, why do you have to be a tortured, tormented soul willing to do horrible, horrid things to be a believable character? I mean, it's what kind of worldview do you people have? Yeah, Jeff Johns and Gary Frank are always a treat. I agree. They were the guys for Superman Secret Origins. Yeah. That's why I won't pick up a DC comic that was made after Bendis came to Superman. I will not touch a DC comic that was made. I don't care how cool this little arc was. Yeah, but this line or this story was actually decent. I don't care. DC died to me. DC Comics, in terms of any new content, utterly died to me. And they didn't care. They didn't change anything. Way after the fact, far too little, far too late, somebody fired Bendis, but it didn't matter, all the other people were still there doing the same old MO, business as usual. So yeah, I just like, but you didn't read the such and such. No, why would you? I don't care if this kind of thing was actually kind of cool in it or whatever. I've got a world, decades of wondrous, iconic DC Universe stories to read before anybody was trying to, grit them all up and darken everything, So, Doomsday Clock, that's the name of it. Thank you. I kept saying Superman Doomsday. I was like, no, that's Doomsday. That was a Superman Doomsday. That was the movie from that. But no, yeah, Doomsday Clock, that was the name. Forgot about that. All right. Sorry, guys. My voice is going a little bit, and we are nearing the hour mark, so I don't think I'll be going too much longer. Brad Meltzer was the guy who did Identity Crisis. Remember that? Sound Engraver says it'll be different when Kathleen Kennedy's gone. Oh yeah. Well, that's the whole that's the pitch. That's the what's the word? It's a lie, but it's the lie that YouTuber channels try to sell you. Let's keep you invested. Don't walk away from Star Wars, guys. Stay invested in the battle so that you'll stay invested in my channel and keep sending them super chats. And we'll keep watching everything they put out and talking about every little thing that's wrong with it. If only Kathleen Kennedy would go. There's no saving it. Someone else is going to come in and keep doing the same thing. But don't lose hope, guys. Stay with me. Keep rolling that money in. Studio Super for $9.99. I think actually no. There's a first super chat. Eldritch fan popped into the super chat before that. Said I've scripted my own EU fan film, The Redemption of Thrawn, and working on another interesting Solo versus Fett. That's cool. Rematch. There'll be 45-minute commercials from my Star Wars inspired original work. Learning how to do AI art. Interesting. Cool. Yeah, I'm not one of these people that's like, AI is horrible, soulless, don't ever touch it. At the same time, and I'm not speaking to what you're doing, Eldritch fan. I have no idea how your approach is or what you're doing, or but I think that people are relying on AI who if it wasn't available would actually go out and get some artists or whatever. And I think that AI art it's very easy to tell when something's AI. It is a bit soulless. It's not that a cool image can't pop up here and there or a cool thing. You know, I like the channels that do like, what if this movie was made in the 50s? And it's all AI generated. And you can tell it's AI generated. It looks very artificial and whatever, but you know, cool to kind of imagine for a second or whatever. That's fine. But when it comes to people like trying to make AI art comics or stuff like that, like I'd never spend my money on such a thing personally. Uh, what's so bad about somebody? I know they're expensive. I know artists are expensive, but anyway, I'm not saying that to you, Eldritch fan. You're just talking about AI art, so it got me on a tangent there. Studio Super said Superman Returns. I remember back in the day when no one knew how to categorize it. Is it a sequel, a remake, a reboot? Then it hit me. Wow, this is a legacy movie. One of the earliest examples. Yeah, it's definitely a continuation, or it's definitely in the continuity of Superman 78, right? But there are little things here and there, like Lex talking about like, oh, it's like you've been here before when he comes to the fortress. Well, now Lex didn't go to the fortress until like Superman 2 or something like that. And yet then in the Marv Wolfman novelization, Superman had never met Zod yet. You know, he's going through the data banks in the fortress, and he sees like the files on Zod or whatever, but he's never met him, you know, so this 2 didn't happen. Plus the novelization's based on a script in which it wasn't Superman's son. Lois's son wasn't Superman's son. That was something they changed to the script a little later. So it's a mess. Is as big of a mess as Superman Returns was. If you, like I've said before, if you pretend that it's not Superman in the movie, it's a very well done film, story wise and everything. But it's the absolute wrong take on Superman. Brendan Routh aside, he's brilliant as Superman. But yeah, Nathaniel Lowsball, good to see you. All right, I'm gonna have to wrap up here, guys. I worry about Japanese video games and anime being influenced by today's modern Western mind virus. I see it happening to upcoming works. It is happening. People, anime fans have cried out for so long, no, because the Japanese culture will never put up with that. Well, it's happening. It's happening. I know Japan has a different culture, and I know it might not happen as widespread, but it's gonna seep in, especially to the works that they export, as it has, as you say, as it has been. So yeah. I do like H.G. Wells. I read quite a bit of H.G. Wells back in the day. Of course, The Invisible Man, The Time Machine. Good stuff. All right, guys. I know we're kind of like, I don't know, I feel like I'm jumping out in the middle of a conversation here, but we have gone on for an hour. I'm sure we could go on much more, but my voice is fading. I didn't get a nap. You know, I'm over an hour already, which is my usual stream time. I'm sorry, I know. I just feel like we're having such a good conversation. I would go on if I had the stamina and my voice wasn't going. But it's been a good night. I appreciate you guys hanging out and giving me your comments. I'm sorry I couldn't read a lot more of your comments, but you know, I got on my own little tangents there, and then by that time, you know, 1,000 different comments have passed by, and it's hard to go back and catch them all. So but thank you guys for coming. Thanks for tuning in to my topicless, you know, as it seemed, live stream. But I will be going through and getting you a review of Batman Resurrection once I finished it, and probably talk about that Babylon 5 animated film, because I'd like to watch that now that I remembered it. And we'll keep going forward. I'd still like to do some Sleepy Hollow stuff. I feel like that's just fall related anyway. It's not necessarily just Halloween, and it's such a literary classic, and it's so tied to American culture in so many ways. So we'll keep up with that. After Thanksgiving, I think I might do a deep dive into The Christmas Carol again. I think anyway. Ah, yes, and Sound Engraver just came in to remind me to remind you that she has her stream tomorrow. Probably at like, shoot, what time was that? Usually I'm blanking on times right now because I'm so tired. I don't know, 45-ish or something. I don't know. 5:45. When are you doing your stream, love? You can let us know there. Who is this user is talking about a link? Is this a bot or a troll or what in the world? 5:45, Sound Engraver. Thank you. Last super chat there to get before I last send off. Studio Super says, I remember you saying Ralph shouldn't be Kingdom Come Superman. Though contained in its own continuity, I can see him being Kingdom Come, seeing as how the themes to both stories are similar in each story. I can see it as sort of an Elseworlds trajectory from the Superman Returns story. But I can't see it as the logical outcome of the Superman Returns continuity, if that makes sense. one of the things about Superman Returns is it's really hard to imagine a story going forward in which Superman can remain the iconic Superman, because once he knows that Jason's his son, there's no way you can just keep that from Lois Lane's husband. That's not iconic, you know. Yeah, it's got some stuff. But anyway, that's all for tonight. Thank you guys, and we'll be back with more next week, and I'll try and have a video out. Before next stream, but we will do the next stream. Yeah, I'm just blocking some people in here who I don't know if these are bots or trolls or whatever. Maybe it's because I dared talk about Donald Trump. But yeah, so thanks for hanging out. I'm gonna go relax, take it easy, but see you next week if you don't see me before then. And check out Sound Engraver tomorrow, 5:45. I'll at least be in the chat there. So catch you then. Thanks everyone, and I don't know, whatever my usual sign off is. I'm tired. See you. Have a good week.